Long before I created the Purpose Maker framework, long before I had language for purpose, alignment, career crossroads, or identity first decision making, I made a quiet decision. I was in high school. I didn't write it down. I didn't announce it to anyone. I probably could not have explained it clearly if someone had asked me about it. But somewhere inside of me, I decided that what I wanted was to find work that felt meaningful and fulfilling. And that decision didn't come from some career assessment. It didn't come from a guidance counselor. It didn't come from having some clear picture of what I wanted to be when I grew up. It came from watching my mother. It came from loving her, from admiring her, and it came from slowly realizing that a person can be smart, strong, capable, beautiful, and deeply loved, and still carry the ache of a life where some important part of them never got fully expressed. At the time, I didn't have words for that. But now looking back, I can see it. That was one of the first career decisions I ever made. I decided I wanted my work to have meaning. I decided I wanted my natural abilities to have somewhere to go. I decided I wanted to find work that felt like fulfillment, not just survival. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and listening into the podcast. I say it all the time and I will continue to say it. I really appreciate you for listening in. And because you've been such faithful listeners, we've been ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, according to Listen Notes. So thank you and keep listening in and share with a friend who may be going through a career crossroads or having her own struggle with a decision related to her career. And don't forget to review, subscribe, and rate the podcast. That helps us out too. Okay, all right. Now, today we're beginning a new solo series. In the last series, we spent time talking about what it means to be at a career crossroads. We talked about achievement, misalignment, identity, purpose, and the decisions that start to rise to the surface when what used to work no longer feels true to you. Now, in this new series, I want to take you behind the Purpose Maker framework that I created and teach to high achieving women at a career crossroads. So, over the next several solo episodes, I'm going to share the major career related decisions I made at different points in my life. Some of them were obvious decisions, some of them were confusing, some of them looked small at the time but became significant later. Some I understood only in hindsight. And I want to be clear from the beginning, I'm not sharing these decisions because my path is the model for your path. It is not. Your path is your path. But I do believe our decisions teach us. I believe our stories hold clues. I believe that sometimes the things we decide before we have language for them become the very things that shape our purpose later. And that is where I want to begin today, with a decision I made in high school. A decision I didn't fully understand at the time. A decision that, looking back now, was connected to my mother, to her story, and the work I do today. Like many daughters before me, and I'm sure like many daughters after me, I thought my mother was amazing. I loved her. I admired her. I respected her strength, and I thought she was cool. I grew up in Connecticut with my mother, father, sister, brother, and many, many cousins. And like all families, we had our ups and downs. But I knew without a doubt that my parents loved me. I knew I was cared for. I knew there was love in our home. And I also had a sense, even as a child, that my mother carried a kind of heaviness. She was strong, responsible, and she helped keep things moving. She did what needed to be done. My father was more playful. He was sort of a playful kind of person that I thought of as sort of like a big kid in some ways. And my mother was the steady one, the responsible one, the one who seemed to be holding so much together. But as I got older, especially as I moved into my preteen and teenager years, I began to understand something else. My mother didn't like her job. Actually, that's way too mild. She hated her job. She worked in a factory sewing sneakers. She was skilled and she had the ability to sew beautifully. She had the kind of skill that could have gone on in many directions under different circumstances. But the work she had available to her at the time was factory work, and she did it year after year. She did what she had to do to support our family. She did what responsible people often do. She showed up, she worked, she endured, and she made it work. But every now and then, when she talked about the job, I could hear something in her voice. I can hear the strain, the sadness. I could hear how much she disliked being there. And she didn't talk about it constantly, but when she did, I paid attention. And even though I was really young, I understood enough to know that her work was not the source of life for her. It was not the place where she felt expressed. It was not a place where her gifts and natural abilities had room to breathe. It was something she had to do. And the difference between work that stretches you and work that slowly drains you, there's a difference there. There's a difference between hard work that feels connected to meaning and hard work that feels disconnected from who you are. Now, as a teenager, I didn't know how to say any of that. I didn't know the language of alignment. I didn't know the language of purpose. I didn't know the language of career fulfillment. I just knew I was watching someone I loved go to work day after day at a job she did not want to. And I knew I did not want that to be my story. And there was another part of my mother's story that stayed with me too. She wanted to go to college. She was extremely smart. She was the valedictorian of her high school class. And from what I understood growing up, she had wanted more education. She had wanted a different path. She was one of 8 children, and her family could not afford to send everyone to college. The plan, as I heard it, was that the older children would go first, the boys in particular, and the boys were sent to college because at the time they were seen as the future breadwinners. Then the oldest girl had the opportunity to go to college, and the hope was that she would graduate, get a good job, and then help my mother, who was next in line, to go to college. But that didn't happen. My mother didn't get the opportunity. And while she went on with her life, while she married and worked and raised children and did what life required of her, I could tell that there was something about that dream that stayed with her. She did not get to express herself in the way she had hoped. She did not get to become the version of herself that education may have opened up for her. And at the time, I understood pieces of it, but I didn't understand the full weight of it. I was a teenager, which means there was a season when I thought I knew everything. Maybe you had a season like that too. In high school, I had very clear opinions about life, love, people, and what everyone should be doing. And because I thought I understood everything, I thought I understood my mother's unhappiness. At the time, I thought the issue was mostly about love and marriage. And I thought maybe she was unhappy because maybe she was not married to her soulmate. And that was my teenage interpretation. And I'm not dismissing that completely because relationships do matter. But what I didn't understand was the impact of spending decades in work you hate. I didn't understand what it can do to a person to be intelligent and capable, but not have a place where those gifts can be fully used. I didn't understand what it feels like to carry a dream that never had a chance to become a life. And I didn't understand the cost of unfulfilled purpose. But even without understanding it fully, I witnessed it. And sometimes what we witness forms us before we have words for it. And that is what happened to me. Somewhere in high school, I made a quiet decision. I decided I wanted to find work that felt meaningful and fulfilling. Again, I didn't say it exactly like that back then. I didn't have the language, but I had the knowing. I knew I wanted to enjoy my work. I knew I wanted to do something that felt connected to who I was. I knew I wanted to use my own gifts and natural abilities. I wanted them to have somewhere to go. I knew I wanted to live a life where work was not just something I survived. Now, here is the honest part. Shortly after high school, I forgot that decision. Or maybe I didn't forget it completely, but it wandered away from the forefront of my mind. And that happens to many of us. We make these early promises to ourselves. We have these early knowings. We sense something about who we are or what we want. But then life happens. Expectations happens. Practical choices happen. Pressure happens. Fear happens. Bills happen. Other people's opinions happen. The desire to be responsible happens. And long before the decision we made quietly in ourselves gets buried beneath the decisions we feel we're supposed to make. And that happened to me too. I didn't move in a straight line from that high school decision into perfect clarity. I wandered. I made choices and decisions. I learned. I got off track. I found my way back. And over time, I began to understand what I was really searching for was not just a job I liked. I was searching for alignment. I was searching for the place where my passions, values, natural abilities, and my desire to serve could come together in a meaningful way. I was searching for work that allowed me to be useful without abandoning myself. I was searching for work that felt connected to purpose. And that is the work I now help other women do. And it's interesting how sometimes you understand your own story more clearly much later. And last year, I had a conversation with my cousin that gave me another layer of insight into my mother's story. One of my cousins had spoken with another relative from my mother's generation. And in that conversation, the older relative shared that my mother had deeply wanted to go to college and become a teacher. And I knew that. I knew my mother had wanted to go to college. But what I didn't know, not with that level of clarity, that she wanted to become a teacher. And when I heard that, something clicked because by then I had already been doing this work for years. I had already been teaching, coaching, speaking, writing, and helping women think about purpose, meaning, calling, and fulfillment. But hearing that my mother had wanted to be a teacher helped me see something more clearly. Part of why this work matters so much is, to me, is because I witnessed what happens when a person's gifts, their natural abilities, don't have a space to be fully expressed. I saw what it looks like for someone to be smart, capable, and full of possibility, but constrained by circumstances, expectations, and limited options. And while I don't want to oversimplify her life because no human life can be reduced to one explanation, I do believe her unfulfilled dream shaped me. It shaped what I noticed, what I valued, what I promised myself. And eventually, it shaped the work I do in the world. That's why I begin this series here because the most important career decisions we make are not made in boardrooms, offices, interviews, or resignation conversations. Some are made quietly. Some are made while watching someone we love. Some are made in childhood or adolescence. Some are made before we have the maturity, the vocabulary, or the life experience to understand what we are deciding. But they still matter, and may still be operating in us. So I want to ask you something. Was there an early decision you made before you had language for it? Maybe you watched a parent work too hard and quietly decided, I do not want to live exhausted all the time. Or maybe you watched someone give up a dream and decided, I want my life to include more than responsibility. Maybe you saw someone trapped by money and decided, I want options. Maybe you saw someone dismissed, overlooked, or underestimated and decided, I want my voice to matter. Or maybe you watched someone build a beautiful career and decided, I want that kind of meaning too. Or maybe your early decision came from joy. Maybe you had a teacher, mentor, pastor, coach, aunt, neighbor, or family member who showed you what it looked like to be alive in their work. Maybe you saw someone using their gifts with freedom and thought, and you thought, I want to feel like that. Not every early decision comes from pain. Some come from inspiration, from longing, from admiration. Some come from contrast. But many of us have early decisions inside us that we never named. And part of the purpose journey is learning to listen backward with compassion, not to live in the past and not to blame the past, and certainly not to romanticize it, but to notice the clues because your story has been speaking. Your life has been teaching you. Your early observations may have shaped what you desire now. Your early disappointments may have shaped what you refuse to keep repeating. Your early joys may have been pointing toward your gifts. Your early decisions may still be connected to the career crossroads you are facing today. For me, the early decision was this: I wanted to find work that felt meaningful and fulfilling. I wanted to do work that allowed my gifts to have somewhere to go. I wanted to experience work as a place of purpose, not just of obligation. And even though I wandered away from that decision for a few years, I eventually found my way back. That decision, though, became part of the foundation for the Purpose Maker framework. Because at the heart of this work is the belief that you do not find your purpose as if it is hidden somewhere outside of you. You align who you are with how you live, how you work, how you lead, and how you decide. That alignment becomes the foundation for clarity. And that clarity helps you make decisions from who you are, not from pressure and not from performance, not from obligation or what looks good on paper. So, as we begin this new series, I want to invite you to listen in two ways. First, listen to my story for the lessons, not because your story will look like mine, but because stories can help us recognize patterns in our own lives. And second, listen for your own decisions. Listen for the quiet promises you made. Listen for the things you knew before you knew how to explain them. Listen for the moments that shaped what you now need from your work, your leadership, your life, and your next decision. Because sometimes the decision in front of you is connected to a decision you made a long time ago. And sometimes clarity begins when you finally have language for what part of you has known all along. All right, so in our next episode, I'll continue the series by sharing another career decision that shaped my path and helped form the work behind Purpose Maker. But for today, I want to leave you with this question: what early decision did you make before you had language for it? And what might that decision be trying to show you now? Okay, thank you for listening to this episode. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin.